Mm. We're just going to give people a couple more minutes. Is Agnes on the line? I heard a couple more beeps than just one. Did anyone else join? On the phone. Mhm. Sweeney, can you see my screen? Hello? I'm not hearing anyone. Can you still hear me on the phone? I can't hear you, though. Are you on mute? I'm not hearing anything from you, Sweeney. Oh,
Hi.
Hello? Hi.
Yes, hello. Hi, this is Agnes.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Agnes, A-G-N-E-S.
Agnes. Okay, hi. I'm glad you could join. And
Great,
Sweeney, are you still... Thank you. Are you still on the phone?
Yeah, I had it muted.
Oh, okay. No worries. I just want to make sure I didn't lose you. We're going to get started because it's already 5 minutes past. I invited actually 10 people to this because I know there's some. Last time we only had a 50% show. Actually 12 people, but I'm a little bit surprised that there's less people this time. But we'll just start it and then see if anybody else joins. Okay. Did someone just join? Hello? Or did someone just drop? I heard a beep, so can you speak up or you might be on mute? Azalini, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Agnes, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then I heard a beep for someone else. And we have an online meeting that you can join as well. So do you want to announce yourself? All right, we'll get started. So today I'm really excited to do another coaching call on this topic about getting promoted. And I think I'm sharing the screen right now. I have a short deck, but I really want this to be an interactive session. A lot of what I'm going to share is really my own perspective. I've, I would say made a lot of mistakes in my career as well as learned a lot from those mistakes as well as from learning from mentors throughout. And I want to be able to share some of that with you. I'm kind of really excited. I've had this blog for about 5 years now, and it's really awesome to be able to help a lot of people all over the world and people that I don't even know. So I want to get to a couple things for this call, and we have kind of a hard stop in about 50 minutes. So we'll do a little quick introduction just to get to know each other. I have some little bit of call logistics, and then we have two very meaty discussion pieces. One is very much around what are some of the most common mistakes that people make that keeps them from getting promoted, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them. And then what are just some of the real key tips that makes you kind of stand out so you can really tip the scale in your favor in being positioned to get promoted. And then we have open Q&A. You guys have sent in some questions, and feel free to ask questions, and I will be asking you questions as well during this session, because it's not just about learning from me, but also just talking to each other and sharing your experiences. Now that it's good we have a small, intimate group, we can get deeper into some of your questions if we want to. Anything else you want to cover in the agenda? Does it sound okay? You can feel free to type in your text if you want to stay on mute on the phone. And when I say text, I just meant the chat window that I'm showing. I will assume silence as I can move on. So before we get started, I just want to get to know you a little bit and also introduce you to this kind of online environment. You should see these 3 buttons on your online meeting. The left-hand side just tells you who's invited and in the session. The middle is where you chat. And then if you have to leave, you can press the dots and exit. And so, excuse me. So I introduced myself a little bit, and I know you've read my blog, and I kind of would like to get to know you a little bit and find out a little bit more about what context what country you're from. If you can use your chat window and tell me either what country you're calling from or what region within the U.S. you're calling from, I appreciate it. Can you do that now? As we need India, thank you for joining. Agnes, New York, thank you. And then the next question I want to ask is, what's your total years of work experience? It doesn't have to be very exact. Okay, 10 years, awesome. 5, great. So you got some experience. You've kind of felt some bumps in your job situation, probably. And the last question is, you can speak it on the phone or just write it out. What is the most important thing you want to get out of this session? What do you hope to get out? And I want to make sure I address that, plus the questions that you guys sent in. But I want to kind of keep that in mind as I start talking about some of these topics. Do either one of you want to share or type in an answer? And I'll wait a little bit.
Actually, I can share. That will be what actually gets you promoted. That's the one. Since with me, I'm a manager, but what happened, I'm developing the program, and in my job, that's supposed to be done basically by the director, but this was passed over on me, and now I'm stuck with this, and how taking what I'm doing right now, would take me to the higher position. That would be using my skills.
Okay.
Because pretty much what I find out is that actually men get promoted faster than women. Sadly, I have not seen that. Yes, that was one of the things which I see in my organization, that men get to be a senior managers or even so-called directors than women. So women, pretty much, they stuck in the same position for 6 to 7 years, whereas men, when they start at the same time, they get promoted after 3 years or something like that. So my question will be, yes, whether that will be, what's the factor, the gender or the skills, or basically the connection we make. Because sometimes even though women, we are talkers, we connect, but maybe we are doing the wrong way.
Yeah, I think those are great questions. I think we'll have an interesting discussion because when I highlight some of the mistakes, I think you'll see sometimes it's gender related. We may have some tendencies to be shyer, to self-promote, talk about our own accomplishments. That definitely has something to do with it. And sometimes there are women that do very well. It just kind of depends on what you're doing to make the most of it. But we'll talk about it. Thank you for that background. Was that Agnes?
Yes, that was Agnes. Thank you.
Okay. And as you wrote in chat window, what are key soft skills for senior managers? I kind of just want to tease out a little bit what you mean, because this topic is around getting promoted. Are you talking about what are the skills to get you to the next level, which is senior managers?
Yeah, it's more on like negotiation and people management.
Mm-hmm. So what are the things that you're expected to have at the next level in order to get you promoted?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you. So let me get into some logistics, and we have a small group, so I think we're pretty good on this. We're on a voice and online call. I think you guys have a good handle on that. I am recording this. That way I can send it to you, and I can also use it as something I can post for folks that couldn't make the call. This is meant, like I said, to be very interactive, and so pause if I go somewhere and you're like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Please pause. And I would like to stay on topic. Getting promoted is a pretty big topic, and so if there is something that you're asking that I can't address right away, I can email you later, but I will tell you, let's focus on it. But based on what you just told me, the questions that you have are exactly the reason we're having this call. So really good. Any questions before we go on? All right. Thank you. Now I have a question for you. So before I share kind of what I see as some of the most common mistakes people make, what do you see? What do you think? Just guess. You can put it in your chat. You can speak up. What are the most common mistakes that we can make that really jeopardizes our chances for promotion? What do you think they are? And there's no wrong answer, so just not speaking up, okay? That can be part of it. Unable to speak up. What do you mean unable to? Is that the same as just, what do you mean by that? Do you want to elaborate, Agnes?
Basically, unable to being heard, like in terms of because my where I work is basically male-dominated sector, so that would be another thing. So as being a woman in that sector, that's like whatever I bring to the table is actually disregarded, I believe. So that's one of the things. So I'm unable to be heard in some aspects.
Now, do you think that is a gender-only related issue?
Not really. No, maybe because of the idea or something like that. I'm not sure. That's why I'm still trying to find out.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts? You can put more than one. It's not a. So I have at least 3 thoughts, right, for this one. But I can keep going if you guys want to kind of hear where I'm going with this. All right. This one, the first one is actually a little counter to what you're saying, but it has its merits. And that is, and this is not in order. I'm not saying mistake number 1 is more significant than mistake number 2 or 3, but mistake number 1 is actually about this need that we have to speak up when I'm right and show people, especially senior people, how smart I am. And this belief that smart people are the ones that get promoted. So we'll get to sort of not speaking up and some of the aspects of that. But there are a lot of smart people, probably yourself as well, where we want to show people that we know our stuff. But then there are mistakes we would make where we're in a big group setting, and I made this mistake, just, self-proclaimed smart person. But I think I had this, I was well-educated, I had, high grades, I'm trying to show, my first instinct to go to a job is to try to show I know what I'm doing. Well, one way of showing that is if somebody says something and I think it's wrong, I should correct them. Well, and you may already know the answer to this, but in a public setting, especially if you've got senior people involved and they're the ones speaking, correcting them can lead them to looking bad. So there is definitely some merit to possibly telling them afterwards if something they shared is not correct. But there is definitely a time and place for actually speaking up. So we'll get into speaking up again, but this is one of those things around it's important to not correct senior people directly in public meetings, especially in a very, I think this is wrong and this is the right answer, because that kind of puts them in an awkward position. And then really afterwards, there are some perspectives, business, especially if you work in business or, just at a job, there's not a black and white situation. There's context around a lot of things. What you believe might be the right answer may lose sight of actually a bigger picture they may know of. So even when you think you're right and you want to actually approach someone and say, hey, I think this might be, I may have a different perspective or heard differently, I just want to share to help you to see if it helps. It kind of puts the onus sort of on you to help the person instead of coming at them to say, I think you're wrong and this is what the right answer is. Because it just breaks the relationship. At the end of the day, senior people like to promote people that they relate to and also people that they feel are supportive of their success instead of a threat. And in some ways, if you're always quick to correct them in public, you're kind of more of a liability than an asset. And so for you to increase your chances, it's about being an asset and being helpful to other folks to help them look successful, not just yourself or your own team. What do you think of that? Do you think this is true? Do you think, is it surprising to you? Any comments about it?
Actually, this is Agnes again. Actually, now that's what you just said is true. I have to admit that. I believe I made the same mistake a few times.
Yes.
I did. I did believe so. I did that, and I was I was taken as a threat many times, and maybe that's the reason. But another question I have: let's say if there's an email, and I have to, and I know there's an email going on between senior people, and I'm involved in the email, and I have to respond, and I know one of the senior people is wrong. What happens in that situation? How am I supposed to respond to that? Because I just don't want to point this mistake in the email. So every other person, So how am I supposed to approach this part?
Well, if you're in the same location, I think it's best to take that one-on-one with that person. And just double check, because they may have a different context. They may be speaking about a different facts. I mean, you may be reading it and go, oh, that's wrong for this particular case, and they may think it's right for a different case, and it was just miscommunicated. So most of the time when you're seeing something, you're like, oh, I'm not sure that I have a different set of data. I would just approach that person because it's no longer a public forum. And if that person is not on, in your vicinity, then you can send them an email and say, I just want to double check, and approach it that way. Because you're right, actually, your instinct is quite right. You don't want to correct other people for two reasons. One, you're not sure if they're actually referring to the same thing, and you want to be sure. And sometimes people are vague about context. But two, more importantly, you're calling them out very publicly, and it's written, so it gets forwarded to other people, et cetera. So that is also pretty bad.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. And frankly, I'm with the same boat. I made this mistake and never knew it. And then looking back, after I learned that this kind of has that effect, I sort of looked back and, oh, that explains a lot about what happened in that job or that relationship. So mistake number 2 has a lot to do with what you guys, excuse me, just a second. As Winnie just said that she has to drop off for work. So, yeah, I can send you the recording later. You can listen to it. We actually have one recording for this, and we have another recording from the previous month. And so you can listen to either one. The other one's already published, so you can listen to that one as well. Thank you for joining. So mistake number 2, so Agnes, we can have a private conversation, is about speaking for, is about thinking that our work speaks for itself. We don't need to brag about it. And this is the one that you, I think, have already brought up. We actually do need to subtly self-promote. And what I've seen stereotypically is men, in general, are better at this than we are. And I'm not saying women are not overall. There are definitely lots of women that are very politically savvy and very good at doing this. So just a general stereotypical statement. So it is more about the skill to do this and make sure people are aware of what good work you've done or what good work you could be doing than just sitting there and hoping people would notice. Because the perception is reality, and promotions are done by committee. Usually it's not just your boss. It's also how other people perceive you. And if they have no idea what you do or how you contribute, then there's nothing for them to base it on, versus if somebody else, a woman or a man, are very good at proactively building that relationship with different people, maybe even, personal ones, just to reaching out, getting advice, etc. So it's an important soft skill to actually promote your own work, and it's pretty. I would say it can get hard if you're shy, if you feel like, well, I'm an introvert. I'm gonna do what I can, but I'm just gonna wait until I'm picked for promotion in some way. I mean, people do that, but then you do risk, I would say, then you lower your chances. And promotion is a very subjective decision. And I would have to say, and I say this at every call, I would say corporate America or corporate, jobs in general in big companies are never fair. It's not based on logic. It's not based on how hard you work. It's not really based on, how smart you are. It is based on what they think you can do for them, for the company, at the next level. And if they don't know a lot about what you can do, then they're just going to make up their own opinions or think well or better of someone else who may have lesser skills in reality or lesser intelligence in some ways. I've seen plenty of people get promoted that just are very good at networking with folks but aren't exactly great at their jobs, and they still make it happen. Before I go into some of the ways we can make this better for ourselves, Agnes, does this resonate with you? Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. Actually, I'm listening, so I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do.
Yeah, and I think here's the 4 tips, right? I think that when you say about speaking up, in the settings where you have meetings, if you have information they may need to know, speak up and share it, right? Because you want to look for opportunities where you can be of help to other people, and they don't even ask. Because you may be doing something and you could help them. You don't want to wait for people to ask you. You want to kind of reach out and help. So that's one way to do it. You can use the fact that you're working on something and think about the type of people that may have good perspectives to give you feedback. So in addition to your boss, if you're working on something that impacts other departments, you might want to reach out to people that's your boss's level or, different levels and try to get an understanding of their perspective to make sure your work is better. It does two things for you. One, it already subtly shares, hey, here's what I'm doing. And two, you're being proactive. You're actually being very proactive in reaching out and building that connection for the company and as well as for your own work brand. The third thing is actually saying thank you. In a way, a lot of times we work with a ton of people, and sometimes they give you input, sometimes they send you information. And when you reach a big milestone, this is one of the sort of subtle ways to promote yourself. You don't want to send out an email that says, hey, everyone, look at me. I've done this, this, and this. That will sound odd in a culture at work. That will sound too self-serving. But instead, what you can do is send it to everyone that helped you and their managers, a large email that says, hey, I just want to thank you so much for all the help you've contributed. We've reached a major milestone. This is a huge win for the company because of X, huge win for our customers because of Y. I could not have done it without you. Thank you. And that does a couple things for you. You just thanked people in front of their bosses for their contributions. You can even think about doing this sort of one-on-one. If somebody did a huge contribution to you, let's say 2 or 3 people, you want to write to their boss and copy them, maybe BCC them, and just be very specific about how they helped you, because that builds your, I would say, equity with other people who will speak well for you. And it makes you look like a leader, because you're actually already acting as a leader, sharing credit. And inadvertently, lots of people are going to get to know about this huge accomplishment you just made. And lastly, it's about, when there are reviews, and a lot of companies have, mid-year and year-end reviews, this is where you do get to brag. So when people say do a self-evaluation, then really take the time to think back and be as specific and complimentary but truthful as possible about your accomplishments. Like, really push and brag here about how you've contributed to the company and to the team. Because frankly, you're making the job easier for the boss if you wrote down everything and just said, well, here's the 4 things I really achieved, and those are the things that, are really important to the company. Here's why, and all that stuff. Because somebody who does that, if the manager has to support your promotion, they already got a cheat sheet that they can use and say, well, look at this person. This person launched this on this time. This is what it impacted. Look at this, etc. So it's your best chance. And if they don't agree, it drives them to tell you why. So it forces their hand to kind of give you feedback. If they think, well, that went well in one way, but it didn't go well in a different way, and here's why. So you need to work on that. Because at the end of the day, if you don't get promoted, I know you're disappointed, but the more important thing is to actually find out why. And if you have a good boss, a boss that is trying to be as fair as possible, they're going to be able to tell you what are the things they still expect you to demonstrate that you haven't yet. And that's why you didn't get the promotion. Well, I said a lot, and Agnes, there's a lot there. Does that help you, or do you have any questions on any of that?
Not so far. It's actually what you're saying is really true. And then I made those mistakes, actually. Because instead of actually going back, and I thank them like in a one-on-one setting, and I never actually CC my boss, my manager, who oversaw my job. And most of the time I was basically, whenever we had to call out someone, on their mistakes. This is where we actually, my company was like something regular. That time it's just to CC your manager, but not when you actually send a thank you note for the job.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And so, so I want to be clear. When I say copy, so I'm saying copy their boss, right? So if you're complimenting someone, it's about, you can copy your boss as well. But let's say you are thanking a big team, then that team comes from 3 different departments. Then whoever's the leader of those departments are kind of copied, and you're sending it to the people that helped you. And that way, you're bragging for them, and that's not bragging anymore, and they're thankful, and they'll be happy to help you next time. But then you can copy your boss because it shows that, hey, you're being a good team player and shows leadership.
Okay, so I suppose to also copy their bosses, right?
Their bosses, yeah. And if you don't feel
great.
if you don't feel, because this is all complimentary, right? You're celebrating success and you're being thankful, right? Sometimes these emails could be very short. It takes me an hour to write because you want to, it's now going to the senior people. You want to make sure you're being, careful about what you're writing and it's good. Because that's your chance, right? That's your chance to kind of brag without actually bragging.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. The last one is one that it took me many years to learn. Still learning it to some degree, is this mistake that we think, well, it's our manager's job to manage me. It's not my job to manage my manager. And really, the person that is ready to get promoted is the one that doesn't need to get managed anymore. And you almost anticipate some of the things that they might need and address it for them before they need to do much. I think, again, this comes back to that theme of supporting others, your senior leader's success. If you can support their success and make it easy for them to manage you, you're going to be an easy sort of shoo-in for the next promotion as well. Does that, do you agree with that statement about us needing to manage our managers, or do you have any questions about that?
I do agree with that. I believe I read an article from Business Harvard Review about that. Yes, I do agree with that.
Yeah. And it's things like, hey, if you're working on something and they ask you to work on something, make sure you give them status updates, right? Because nobody wants to be like, hey, work on this project. They don't want to wait 4 months later to just go, oh, it's done, right? They want to know progress and if you're on track or not, if you need things. So make that easy. A simple way to do that is if you have a manager, make sure you have a regular check-in. Like sometimes it's weekly, and you just have a half an hour, but you can proactive in setting that up, and you can say, hey, I just want to brief you, I want to get your input on certain things. This is the best time to kind of do that management and make it easy for them. So they only need to think about you for that hour, and then you manage that agenda to be very proactive in answering their questions and telling them what's going on so that they feel like, oh, you know what, Agnes got it. I don't have to worry about that. If I have a question, she's going to have the answer, and frankly, she's going to tell me what's going on before I need to know it. Wouldn't that be great, right? As a manager, that's a great person to have on your team, somebody who is really accountable but also proactive. You also want to get input early. A lot of times we're working on things, but we don't have all the expertise, and we want direction. It's okay to ask for direction. But you don't want to give the problem to them and say, what do I do next? You just want to say, hey, I'm going this direction. I'm thinking to go here and there. Do you see any gaps here? Am I going in the right direction? You kind of want to say, I own this already, but I just want to get your valuable input because you're more experienced than I am. Third is building a personal relationship. People like to promote people they like. So if you're a person that never talks about your personal life, don't have any kind of personal connection with other people at work, it's easy to turn down something you say. It's easy to ignore, because you're not a person to them yet. You're just a worker, right? The more, especially with your managers, and I'm not saying like pretend you like golf if they like golf. It's not about forcing an interest just to, kiss butt per se. But it's just about taking an interest in your manager as a person. Some of it can just be, hey, they are your mentors in your career. You can be proactive to ask for their advice, ask, how do they make it. Lots of people love being asked to mentor, to be asked to give career advice about how they made it. What did they learn? What should you avoid? It's a compliment to them that you say, hey, you've been around and I respect you. It's an inherent compliment. And this last thing is so important, that is so key and pretty easy to do, but most people don't do it. If you want a promotion, ask about it a year in advance. Because it's too late by mid-year and year-end, because you haven't set the expectation and you haven't asked what exactly you're supposed to demonstrate to get promoted. So if you haven't asked, their answer and your answer in your head could be very different. And if they're different, even if you demonstrated everything that you thought is needed for promotion, it doesn't one thing doesn't match your list, their list, you're done. You're not going to get promoted that year. So it's okay to have these discussions. It's not so much like, oh, I want to get promoted, when can I? It's more like, okay, thank you for that review. I would like to understand my career path. What is the next? When do you think I can get to the next level? So it doesn't put them on the spot, because it's a year from now, right? And they could say, oh, I think you're ready in 2 years. So immediately you already know that they think you're only ready in 2 years, and you can start asking, well, could I make it in 1 year? And you can find out the possibilities and what that might take. And you may find out in the review, frankly, they have their sights on 2 years. So 1 year, if you want to get promoted, you're not. And you can, either accept that or you look for a different job if you really want to get promoted. But those are some things that you can have frank conversations with. And once they do give you a timeline, it kind of puts them on the hook. You've had the conversation. And then you can also say, well, and this sounds very proactive on your part, like, what do I need to demonstrate? And they might give you a set of things. Sometimes what I do is I put down in an email afterward, thanking them for their advice, and put down, here's the 4 things you said I need to demonstrate. And guess what? Throughout the year, make sure you're demonstrating those things, and your self-evaluation at mid-year, start looking at, are you on track? And at mid-year, you can start talking to your manager about, hey, I'm trying to demonstrate these 4 things you told me at the beginning of the year. Am I still on track for promotion? You can check in. Those are valid times to check in. And so that's when you won't be as surprised when the promotion decision happens. They're on the hook to have to explain to you why you're not going to get promoted if you've been on track all year. And it can still happen given, like budget freezes, et cetera, cuts and stuff. There's still other things outside of the control that can happen, but at least you are increasing your chances to get promoted. Again, I said a lot there, Agnes. Any questions?
Okay. I have a question, actually, because you mentioned something in the build a personal relationship with your manager.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking that, when you were going over the point, the bullet point, you said something about mentoring. How do you ask actually someone to be your mentor? Like in the way that doesn't sound really pushy, but at the end, is the person will agree to be the mentor for you?
I've written an article about this, and I actually need to update articles. This is a great question. I actually think it's important to ask specific advice instead of label them as a mentor. Because think about it this way. If you're labeling them and they kind of like, senior people are busy, right? So they have to think about time commitment. Now that I'm your mentor, there's expectations. I think it's better to kind of try to build a relationship and ask for something specific that you need now, right? Like, can I approach you? Do you mind if I have a couple minutes? Or can I set up a calendar, 30 minutes with you? I would really appreciate your advice on X and Y. And here's why I want your advice in particular. Like, you can kind of give them a reason, like, oh, I see you got through this, or you've been here for 7 years and really could understand a little bit more how to navigate the career here. So it's better, there's two schools of thoughts, but I think I'm starting to end up more on the side of it's better to start asking the questions so that they can address it right there with that 30-minute meeting, and then you just thank them. And the only thing you ask after, at the end, is, do you mind if I come back to you for, I really appreciate what you've told me. I've learned a lot. Do you think I can keep in touch with you in case I need more advice? That is a lot easier to say yes to than, Lei, can you be my mentor? Because in my mind, immediately it's, okay, what's my time commitment? What are they talking? What are their, what do they mean by that? I mean, I could say yes, but then it really isn't specific. And in my mind, it could be, every quarter you reach out to me and we talk for 30 minutes. And in your mind, you're like, any problem I have, I can reach out to Lei. So there's misunderstandings that way. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Great question. Okay, so those are sort of the top mistakes I've covered. Let's now go to really what does it take to get promoted. I think we kind of talked about the themes, but this chart kind of really summarizes what are the key things. I think that most people's mistake is they just think, hey, let's do good work. And if I do good work and, I do it well enough over and over and demonstrate, I'll get there. But I think the next level is you got to be proactive, right? I talked about you got to figure out what they expect. Even Azwini was asking me what kind of soft skills she needs to demonstrate at the senior manager level. Really, the answer is that you have to ask the people in your company, right? Because of your job, and frankly, that level that's going to make the decision for you around whether you get promoted or not, you want to find out what they're looking for, because my guess may not be the right one, and your guess may very well not be the right one, and you don't want to guess. And being proactive also means demonstrating skills at the next level. You may not have the title yet of team leader, but if you have a way to informally lead a team of even peers, that is demonstrating leadership and teamwork and team leadership. And so those are things that sometimes you can't wait for the formal title, but you can actually look for opportunities to demonstrate that you're ready. And then also check in, right? Because our self-perception sometimes is not reality or not equal to what they're thinking in their minds. So I tend to tell people the frequency is at most every 3 months, but definitely at least every 6 months. Because these review times, even if you don't have formal reviews, you can proactively set up time and say, hey, I'm working towards this. I am very focused on this. I would love to, do you mind giving me some input around whether I'm on track or not? Those are fair things to ask, even if they're not formally set up in your company. And then this last one is about building relationships. We talked about not only with your boss, but really there's that personal board of advisors. You can ask somebody senior to be your mentor. And sometimes it's better it's not your boss because it's a little bit too much interaction with just one person. There's people that you can maybe connect with because you're from the same country or because you're share a passion for some sport, or you have you're at the same life stage. Both got kids and you start talking about stuff. You just don't know. Some leaders are very personable and you just feel that connection. It is up to you to start kind of nurture that connection and start building it. they may or may not have a say in your promotion, but a lot of times they are going to have very wise advice about what you should do and don't do. And they've been usually around the block longer than you as a company. So you want people that can give you that insider help. Any questions about this?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay, right. So now I have the questions that, different people ask. I'm gonna sort of answer both your question and Azwini's question. She's going to listen to this recording. Let's go with yours first, because in addition to what you asked already, you said, what is more important to get promoted, being a pro in your role or office politics? I think it's a great question. It's a very wide question to ask. I would say it's actually, you have to have a foundation of being pretty good at your job. I would say pro or not, that's all perception, right? If they don't perceive you as being a pro, it doesn't matter if you are a pro or not. So this whole thing is like, the answer is really both, because the office politics is, some people say that's a negative word, but it exists in literally every company. It's really the office culture and who likes who and who respects who and who has a good reputation. That's what you're building is. You want to build the right reputation with the right people so that they are all thinking the easy answer is to promote you. That it's the obvious answer, or it's at least so if somebody else is better at that in making it more obvious to promote them, it's a competition as well. So you are going to lose out if they make it easier than you do. So it is kind of a game, but those who don't play kind of have a disadvantage. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it did. So basically, you're telling me that I have to have both of them. Like I have to balance both of them. The being pro, know my job, and basically know how to navigate across the office, the culture. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and I think here's some details on that, because we have a little luxury. Being a pro in your role doesn't mean being a perfectionist. So if you got your job, you got your job, then don't spend another 10 hours. Let's say you have to build like PowerPoint slides, or don't spend another 10 hours lining up every word, making sure the entire slide looks exactly perfect, because that doesn't have any value to your actual role. It is our tendency to over-perfect. I'd rather you spend the 10 hours trying to figure out, how do I connect to that person? I kind of like that person. I think they're a good role model. Let me write that scary, uncomfortable email, or, talk to them in the hallway and see if I can set up 30 minutes to talk to them. So your question is a valid one. There's a trade-off to how much time you want to spend at work. And I would say you want to be 90% good on your job. So the people, there's a little surprise. You know what you're doing. But then invest the time and the brain power to think about how to reach out to people and build those relationships, write those thank you emails, update the status, build that set of networks that will help you. And I think that is it's not just about putting all hours on your work and also on, it's impossible. There's only a limited amount of time. But it's important to put some time in the people aspect of the job.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. And then Azwini had a question that may be relevant to you. I know might be relevant to other people listening to this recording. Is how much of a stretch assignment should you take? And that's an interesting one, because I think that there are, and I've heard this before, I've seen, and this is where the gender comes in, I've seen men just jump up and take a job and before they even know they can do it. I've seen women, I'm like this in some ways too, I'm cautious to not look stupid. So I don't want to take a job until I'm fairly certain I'm up for the challenge. And in some ways that put us in a disadvantage because you're not quick to raise your hand, and then you're not going for something. Now, there are times where some people went for a job and it's actually way beyond what they can do. That's definitely not advised, and I would say sometimes people bluff through it, but sometimes they fall really quite flat on their faces. But I think at times we might tend to err on the side of saying no, but if someone is actually offering an assignment to you, more than likely they're thinking about the fact that you can probably do it, and they're giving you an opportunity. So you want to actually say maybe yes, or you can say, yes, can I find out more about it? It sounds really exciting. Thank you for thinking of me. Keep that door open, and then gives you time to think about what exactly you're getting into. And don't wait until you're absolutely sure you can do the job to take it, because by then it's not a stretch assignment anymore. A stretch assignment, by definition, is something that is unknown, that is difficult, that stretches beyond the skills that you may currently have. But if you can do it and you have the support of someone offering you that opportunity, then you have a great opportunity to learn and to kind of progress in your career. Let's see, Agnes, do you have any other questions? I know I addressed yours, I addressed Aglini's. I have other questions here, but since they didn't join, I'm not going to go into those.
No, not really. Obviously, maybe Melinda has a very good question. How do you alter your boss's perception once they have labeled you? That would be like kind of...
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, so I'll address that one. I saw that question. I was like, whoa, that's a good question. It's not easy. You kind of need to decide, here's my answer, you need to decide whether they labeled you because of something you've done. Let's say you fumbled and you actually had, you made a mistake, and so they, quote-unquote, labeled you as such because of that. And that's, in some way legitimate because you have made a mistake. It's all about then showing that you're making progress on learning from it, and then demonstrating that you're earnest about making changes and avoiding it in the future. So there are times we're labeled just because we're human beings, and we weren't, like, I'll give you an example. We weren't very accurate. Let's say we miscalculated something, and then we send it out, and it was a final report, and somebody looks back. That's a pretty, bad mistake. It's not fatal, but it kind of makes people question, her attention to detail is not great. That's where you need to double check your stuff, and you demonstrate in future work that you actually cover it. And you verbally say, I'm working on it. You say in your review, I'm very conscious of, here's the 3 things I'm working on. I'm double checking, I'm asking other people to help me. Those are the earnest ways to show you're trying to do something different. Now, there's a different reason people label you, and it's based on their biases of the world, because you're a woman, because you are of a certain race. It could be anything, because you have a family and they don't, whatever it might be. That's where it's a bias that's inherent in that job. That's where you have to decide whether, hey, you want to play this political game and lobby your reputation with other people that don't label you and try to change that, or you find a better company and a better role that is more fair, that people don't quick to judge based on their own biases, because you cannot change their bias when they're set in their bias, and no matter what you do, because they're the one that are actually limited in their views. And I'm saying there's plenty of senior leadership that are not great in many, many companies. And it's up to you. You might not be able to change them, but you can walk out the door. It's up to you to find a better environment for you. If you find the environment that you're in is biased against you.
No more questions from me.
Okay. All right. Well, we're exactly at the top of the hour, or at the end of our hour. I would like, if I may, I'm going to copy this and paste it in the chat window. It's a very short survey that just you click on, and if you could just fill it out for me, just to let me know how it went. And it's just that way it helps me a little bit to figure out how to do better next time and what actually worked really well and I can keep. Would you do that for me, please?
Yeah, sure. We'll do.
Okay. And then, since we're one-on-one, I kind of want to ask you a little bit, and you may not know the answer, but I want to ask your advice on something. So these group coaching calls, I believe, are helpful. Like, I like the fact that I can talk to you, find out a little bit more about what you're struggling with, and help. What I'm surprised by is actually people didn't show up. I had quite a few people with very engaged emails asking these questions, but then they didn't show. Do you have any insight as to why? Like, was it difficult? Is it confusing what I'm sending out? I just want to kind of figure out how to sort of manage this, because I sort of turned away people thinking I have too many people on the call.
Okay, so for me, was a little bit challenging to track the time conversion, but then after I just knew this is the day and that's it. And today it's what? It's Tuesday usually. I believe so for some, it depends. Some people stay longer on Tuesdays, like Tuesdays, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is one of those days that people are actually stuck at work most of the time.
Right.
Or sometimes yes,
right.
yes, that was the one thing I know. There might be one.
Like a time difference. People think it's 5:30 their time when it's really 5:30 my time, and then they realize, oh, I missed it already.
Yes, that's the thing. The time, that's one. Because first when you send out, and I was 5:30. Okay, so then I will have to stay at work. Then this and that. And I was playing, but then I saw it's a different time zone. So, and when I did the conversion, I was okay, it's 8:30. I will make it home.
Yes, okay. No, that's good to know. One person also emailed me and she said, oh, it's 1:30 a.m. my time, so I want to make it, but really I can't because it's in the middle of the work week. Okay, so that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be. I believe so. That's the one. Maybe if you send out email or invitation, saying guys, be aware that's my time, not your time. And about the conversion. Right. Because some people they don't check the EDT or what's the time.
Right. Okay.
They assume, okay, it's my time. Or you just have to make sure that you convert that already for them.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So you help me too, because then I can, when people respond with they want to attend, I can confirm and say, hey, are you aware this is Pacific time? What is that? What time zone are you in? This is going to be this time. Are you going to make it? Because I think that's the part. Because last time we had a good show. Today I'm very surprised. There's very few people with so many eager responses and questions. So, okay. Well, thank you so much for that feedback. I really appreciate it, Agnes, and I hope this helped you. And I'm glad I can do these kind of things with you guys. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.